Hey, I'm Decathlon Gamer. Welcome back to F1 Manager. This is episode 69, and we are ready to start a new season, or at least just about. It's January still, late January, and our first of the year upgrade project is already complete with the chassis, and we have a whole set of projects that are going to be done here in the very near future. So we want to get kind of all of those rolling into the next one. But we started with the quick upgrades, the short upgrades. We're not going to stay with them though, but we wanted to definitely make some progress on that part of the car. We have a suspension upgrade coming due tomorrow. We have side pod upgrade due in a week and a half. When is the time? When is the time to flip to something new? We still have 44 days until the season begins. Prior to these three upgrades that are coming complete, which will all have just minor impacts on the car, I don't want to look at individual teams at this stage without preseason coming, but I do want to at least see where we are compared to the grid average here in January. Top speed, we are short again of grid average by about 1/10 of a kilometer, and we are short on acceleration as well, but both of those aren't far behind grid average. We are ahead of the curve when it comes to cornering speed, but in all three cases we are just ahead of average. DRS had been equal, it's 1/100th behind, it's right there, and acceleration is equal to grid average. Meanwhile, dirty air cornering, 0.5% better in low, 1/3% better in medium, and a 0.5% better in high speed. So we are just a little bit ahead of grid average in those departments. And then brake cooling is something that we've always been behind on, but we're not as far behind as we used to be, just 2% at the start of the year, as that was, the major turnaround, and we did a decent job to cover that off. So I think we're actually closer than we were. And engine cooling is 2.5% behind. So not bad. And these little minor upgrades should impact each of those three more so than some other areas. Meaning, I think we are, at this stage, right about grid average, kind of across the board. Meaning we've got a competitive midfield car. Can we turn it into a race winner? That is another story. Going for extensive in 4 out of 6, my latest underfloor upgrade, as we've long since learned that this is the one that has the biggest impact on the car itself. Rank on the grid, cornering is already good. It's going to get better with this upgrade. Top speed is also something, it's finally starting to get somewhere. We are finally breaking the mold in that one. But the summary is, with it rushed, it's going to take an extra $500,000, which is close to $2 million in cost. But we've already learned that that's something that can be an okay pathway now, as long-term finances are in actually really good shape these days, and cost cap is not something that we've been hurting on. But it still will take 3 days beyond the first race of the year, so it's going to be by the second race weekend that we have this. As long as we rush underfloor design, maybe it's going to take a couple races to get it in, but it's going to make a difference, and we're going to probably want to turn around and get another underfloor done pretty quickly after that. Suspension done a day later, so we've got another project to get on the go. Front wing rushed most areas. High speed's going to be unchanged, and turning it up doesn't make much of a difference either, except for in terms of the time. Getting it done in 36 days with 43 means we have a week after that to get some front wings ready in time for the first race. So we're going to have the three basic components: the chassis, the side pods, the suspension, all with upgrades in time for the first race of the season. This is also going to get us the front wing ready in time for the first race of the season, and the underfloor by the second or third, meaning we'll have just about a round of upgrades. We haven't gotten quite to the rear wing, and we've still got about a week and a half to go for that one, so I'm guessing it's not going to be ready for the first race. But to have 4 parts ready by the first race is definitely solid upgrade, and we're already starting from a midfield average position, an upgrade to just about everything by the second or third race. should definitely put us in the right direction for this first race. Maybe not quite to the top, but definitely where we can hopefully compete for like a podium or something. So the side pods are ready, and I'm wondering if I should go into the rear wing with virtually no quality upgrade potential left, or if I should kind of move on to my second chassis upgrade of the year earlier than what I had planned on, and wait on the rear wing until we actually have, because right now I have like a 1/10 of a point or 2/10 of a point and a couple, maybe 4 hours left of wind tunnel time is all. So here's the plan for this one. I'm going to do a suspension upgrade. I'm not going to do any added focus so that it is done in just over 2 weeks. I'm going to make it intense so that we gain more overall expertise on the car, on the part, so that in future upgrades it'll essentially be better. For now, it's a very, very minor upgrade. Doesn't change much, really doesn't change much. But again, it's going to lead to better upgrades in the future when we actually have hours to commit to it. For now, it barely scratches the surface of being anything, but it'll be done in time in 18 days that we can actually still get the second version of suspension on the car before the season starts, which means I can actually go back and cancel the others that are already in production. So with 3 weeks until the race in Bahrain, our balance is already better than it was. So we definitely covered things off financially. Doing the upgrade that we did when we did, facility-wise, was worth it and should be done before too long. Let's see, we've got some scouting complete, but we also have our post-Barcelona testing results to see where the car really does stand at this stage. So far I have a couple of the parts on the car, but not others. James Irwin, I've got his feedback up to a 79. I want to get it to an 80, but meanwhile his overall average is now an 80. Once I do get this to an 80, though, I'm not worried about communication at all. He's already good affinity with Jack Doohan, even though they've just started working together. That's not great, but it'll be great early in the season. So never worried about communication. But we'll get that feedback to an 80, and then I might actually start throwing some points in pit crew management, because the feedback gets high enough where we're always getting 95 to 100%. So I don't necessarily need the feedback to go much higher than that, as we're getting what we need in terms of setup bonus. Then pit speed bonus becomes pretty important. We've lost many a position because of where our pit box is, but we've definitely lost some positions when two cars come in nose to tail and both pit at the same time, and they should be coming out at the same time, but we come out a half a second later and have to wait, and then they overtake us, and then we lose an additional 2 seconds waiting for them to go by, and it turns into a 3-second loss and a position lost and maybe more. So pit crew management will be a focus before long. Meanwhile, Jago is also ready. He's already at an 83, so let's go ahead and make his pit crew management an 84 now as well. With the Team Hub and Race Simulator both falling into disarray a little bit, we've gone ahead and got the refurbishment of those initiated, bringing us down to 15 million. Scouting department is still just level 2. I don't even know how much. It's 2 million upgrade. Doesn't hurt to have another scout. Doesn't help much either. And finally, post-Barcelona testing results. This is where we stand compared to the rest of the grid. Top speed is 13th, while acceleration is 19th. That's still better than where it was. I mean, we were 20th and 20th for ages. Though technically, I guess that would be 19th and 19th. So acceleration is still dead last, but it's also so close to even being grid average that it is a negligible difference that we have. It's very tight. It's very compact, and we've almost hit that 376 already that we were, a fair bit behind. We were just over a 10th behind. We've already covered half of that 10th with just 2 upgrades on the car so far. Low speed, 3rd. Medium speed, 7th. High speed, 7th. Not quite where we started last season. Not quite, but it's close. And again, that top speed is so much better than where we started last season. DRS, so much better than where we started last season at 5th and 3rd. we're good in DRS now, not just okay. Last season we were kind of 13th, 15th in that area, where we were like 19th, 19th in top speed, and cornering was first, third. We neglected it for a long portion of that season, but we've really taken care of that pretty well. Not quite back to the standard it was at the start of last year, and we definitely need to continue focusing on it, but we have finally made up ground in those other areas. Dirty air cornering 3rd, 7th is pretty dang good, and brake cooling at 11th, 9th, up from dead last in those areas to midfield. I'm pretty happy with the kind of progress we have made. That top speed is so close to kind of slamming its way into a very competitive level, and meanwhile we corner pretty dang well. And when you start taking tactics into play, it's not that hard to start beating teams when you don't have weaknesses. Right now, acceleration and top speed is still our biggest weakness, but nothing like it used to be. Suspension design is done, and we're about 3 days away from entering the new period, so I'm actually going to wait the 3 days and then begin with a rear wing upgrade, the one part that hasn't gone through that process just yet this year. Here is the updated board targets for the year. It's really weird that it doesn't update it at the time you would think at the start of the year, but it does it by the time you kind of reach this point. But anyway, they are confident in us. Obviously, we've been doing absurdly well every single season, but the new season objective is to finish 2nd or above. Long term, win the Constructors' Championship. They are giving us 4 years. 4 years to do it. Looks like they're saying 5 seasons remaining, so I guess 25, 26, 27, 28, 29. Yeah, 5 seasons to do it. So not by preseason for 29, but by the end of the 29 season. So they're giving us 5 years to win the Constructors' Championship. I'm not sure if we're going to do it this year, but I am fairly confident that we would have it by next year. This year's trying to split projects into thirds. Well, doesn't net what it used to net, because we've moved all the way into 2nd. You get less based on position. New rear wing would push our top speed up to where grid average was when we checked it a month ago. It would push acceleration up a little bit as well, and then DRS. I mean, it would push us right near the top. Speaking of how far would it put us up? Top speed would push from 11th to 7th, acceleration from 17th to 13th. We'd be unchanged in cornering, but dirty air cornering would go up from medium and high speed up into the top 3, essentially the 2nd place. And then the DRS, we'd move up a spot in top speed and acceleration to 2nd best and 1st best in that area compared to the rest of the grid. And that is an encouraging sight. We're going to go ahead and spend some extra money on this one to rush it. It's going to take 39 days to get that done. And here is our front wing design done. And like I said, this one is done in time to get it on the car before that first race. That means from the New Year's design of the car, we already have the chassis to its 2nd design. Before the race, we're going to have the front wing to its 2nd design. The rear wing 2nd design is the one we just started a few days ago and is the last one coming. But we're already on the 2nd design of the side pod. The 2nd design of the underfloor will be available in a week and a half to 2 weeks, just after the first race. So almost at the very beginning of the season. And we're already on to the 3rd suspension design. So really good early advancements, and that to me is the name of the game, is getting those upgrades coming, because even though our facilities still don't quite match up, and our staff definitely still doesn't quite match up compared to others, as we've moved up the grid in the constructors, as we went from back of the grid to 4th, we saw our allocation time just plummet, and it was hard to make the upgrades last year because of those other deficiencies. Now we're up to second in the constructors after last season, and that time has been cut even further. The facilities have made progress, staff's the same, slightly better than it was, but the same. And it's going to be a struggle to kind of get the car to that next level. But this is it. That November, December crunch time, that January, February, March crunch time is where you can see a lot of gains if you play your cards, close to your chest and work really, really hard to squeeze things in. And one big difference from past seasons is I'm using the rush. I'm using the intensive upgrades much more extensively now that the finances are good, especially with two young drivers that are quite affordable. I mean, sure, we're paying Pourchaire a lot more than we had been in the previous seasons, but he was still making a couple million less than Albin, plus that bonus that Albin kept collecting every race. We don't have to worry about that with these two drivers as often. They're still going to get bonuses and bring them in, but they're not as big. The threshold is much higher. And I'm hoping that we have to give them that bonus on a pretty regular basis because it means we're getting podiums, winning races. Previously, at the start of last year, our chassis, suspension, side pods were like dead last in everything. And we spent a lot of time to try to work on that. Overspent that time. I never did quite get in a great place. You can see now drag reduction, which was still last after a full year of chassis upgrade after chassis upgrade after chassis upgrade, as we go to make our third chassis upgrade for this year, or second upgrade, third version. The drag reduction will finally get out of being the worst. Meanwhile, engine cooling's actually done pretty dang well. It's getting up to second best on the grid, and airflow will remain at just shy of average, but that's putting us in a much better state than where we had been. 78%, 67%, 74%. This part's just doesn't do as much, and you can see on the grid itself we're not talking about major differences, and this is why the car went from really strong to not. Right, we're doing a major upgrade. We're committing to a number of hours, not a third. I did take a little bit off of that, but we're going all in on these guys, and yet still here we are. Here we are, barely seeing a change to the car, and that was where we went from looking really good to not so good. So I'm gonna still do the chassis upgrades and all of those this season, but not with the same sort of intensity I did a year ago. I'm going to continue to focus on the three main parts much more so, kind of roll through these at a slower rate, or at least with less intensity. Now the beautiful things on these are, they are so much shorter, and rushing them does not cost much. So we're going to go ahead and rush this one. And the design center upgrade is done. Same day, race simulator refurbished complete. That is state of the art. That is the top level. So finally our first facilities management one is done. But that means I actually have capacity for a fourth project and 5 additional engineers, which means I can continually have 5 engineers on every project. But instead of 3 projects, now we can rotate 4. So with that opening, I'm going to throw some time and money at another front wing design. Not going flat out because we don't want it to take ages, but we are going to put extra emphasis on all of the downforce on the cornering. And you can see that front wing wise, that's going to put us to third on the grid everywhere, at least compared to today. And what it's going to do for the overall car is it's going to get that medium speed on top, and it's going to get us into the top 2 in all forms of cornering. And actually bring us up on brake cooling as well, which is now into the top 10. Top 10. Acceleration and top speed are the only things that still are not, but top speed's almost cracking the top 10, and just the acceleration is well behind now. So, and then this is going to be 4 active designs. That's huge progress. Now, how long is this going to take us? It would take us 65 days, but of course we have 5 engineers. That brings it down to 47. It's going to cost $1 million. If we rush it, though, get it done in a month. Yeah, I love it. That's 5 new designs onto the car by the first race. And that's going to be 1 or 2 additional designs within a race or 2 after that. I'm happy. I'm really happy because we were average. We were just average. We're better than average now as we go to enter this first race weekend. Last year, Bahrain was a good one. We had the cornering speed. We just didn't have top speed, and it translated into a 5th, 6th finish behind the 2 Red Bulls and the 2 Ferraris. 20 seconds ahead of Fernando Alonso behind us, and just 10 seconds of the 4 in front of us. So we were much closer to the front end of the field than we were to the back end of the field. We'll see how we do this time around, but in terms of what is expected, acceleration is important, and that is our weakest area. But low speed, medium speed are both important, and we're good at those. And we do have the DRS acceleration.
Welcome to the archipelago of Formula One. Bahrain might have a small land footprint, but it's showing its big spirit right now in the grandstands. Either way, it's time for another fantastic weekend of Grand Prix racing. The Bahrain International Circuit is a challenging track, and the cars routinely have to brake from high gear to low to take the narrow turns. With the need for downhill braking, the risk of locking up is one drivers will need to manage. It's all about focus and balance to get victory here. At this early stage in the season, there are still plenty of opportunities for things to change. In this sport, there simply are no guarantees. The competition is on.
I'm going to skip practice for you visually, but for you, I'm going to skip practice to get us caught up a little bit visually. I am going to go through it, especially for the first race weekend. But one notable thing here is that as Pourchaire and Doohan begin their first race as our pair of young drivers here in the Williams, I want you to note what their rating is. It's a 79. Each of them is at a 79 right now. Now, Doohan is a little bit ahead of Pourchaire. We'll see if, because previously Doohan had less ground to make up than what Pourchaire had, but this resets every year. So what will it be this year? Will Pourchaire continue to gain and catch up on Doohan in terms of that overall? Because right now, yes, they're both 79, but he is slightly behind. But the notable thing is that Albon starts as an 80. So year 1. We are now in a very similar state with these two to year 1 Albon. Now, what we also have, though, is final pace Albon. They both have it. They both have the same pace as we go out there. What they don't have is some of those more intangible things that Albon had developed over the past 4 seasons? 3 seasons? How far are we into this thing? 942, right? So we've done 3 years. So we're entering season 4. Over those past 3 seasons, Albon had developed those intangibles quite a bit. He made fewer mistakes. Pourchaire's developed that a lot, but he's still a little behind where Albon was. Doohan's already fairly good in that area. His problem was he was really bad on tires, but we've fixed that. He's not bad on tire wear any longer. So he's learned how to drive a Formula One car over the last 2 years as the reserve driver. So Pourchaire's first lap in qualifying was greatly compromised, so he's going to have to go out again. There was multiple traffic. Doohan managed to hit that traffic at just the right time. And at the moment, sits P1. Just by the tiniest margin. Leclerc goes top. Ferrari's been the quickest throughout practice. Of course, we always have things turned down, so it's hard to say where exactly we would be. And Pourchaire still in trouble after running that lap on a weaker compound. In Doohan's case, I know we are fine to get through. And there's no way we're not going to get through Q1 on that, so we're going to go ahead and reuse that same set. But Pourchaire, unfortunately, is going to have to use a second set here in this session, as he's only P14 and far from safe. The entire field's within 1.6 seconds, but realistically, you're looking at the entire field within about a second, as at least one car from every team is less than 1 second behind. As we head out for the final run. Let's go ahead and get Doohan going first, as he is very much safe. And then get Pourchaire towards the back end here. And Pourchaire comes out in front of Doohan. Sure. Okay, fine. Stroll spins off. Messes up his lap. He's going to be out, but does it compromise our guys? It looks like it did, as Pourchaire does not improve. They had to slow under the yellow conditions, and yeah, you can see how far behind we all are here at the end of the lap compared to where everybody was. But we still managed to get out of Q1, so a mistake there by Stroll nearly took Pourchaire out of qualifying, and neither one improved their time on the last run there. So both cars going for their Q2 banker laps, and doing so with a used set in both cases. So we'll see, how they perform out there on this one. Are they even going to get a competitive time? Leclerc was very much in the way. Norris was very much in the way. May not be a great time, though their times are very similar to one another. How does it compare to everybody else? Off the pace a bit. Definitely off the pace a bit. Magnussen puts in a really good time. Gasly goes top. And that's P14 and 15. We are the slowest on the first run, but still very close to everybody else. So Russell's going to be out there first. Mercedes seems to be even further off the pace than where they were last year, from what I've seen here in practice this weekend as we get our laps underway. Magnussen with the lockup, that's going to mess up his lap. Perez right now is on the bubble and currently out. Bottas and Zhou, big surprises there. Gasly's fastest. Gasly continues to be fastest. And with those laps wrapping up, we are looking at having to improve by about a second. Pourchaire doesn't manage to do it. He is 11th, and Doohan 12th. We don't have the kind of pace we thought we might. Slower than expected. 11th and 12th. Still a competitive car. I think we should easily get into the points. But based on that, I do not think we are headed for competing for a podium. I think we're going to be looking more for like 5th, 6th, 7th position. And Alpine with Gasly on top of the time charts and pretty close on his times through the two qualifying sessions so far. Doohan was slower in Q2 than he managed in Q1, where Pourchaire only improved by a little, so I think realistically both cars were a bit slower than they were capable of. They probably, based on what we saw here, they probably should have been able to get a time around 8th or 9th, and neither one put in their best lap.
Drivers are strapping themselves in, ready for race day.
Qualifying went well for Williams, as attested by their strong position on the grid. Now it's all about finding that edge for the race itself. This weekend, Red Bull displayed real promise during qualifying, but will they fulfill that potential by the time they reach the checkered flag? And the race will be taking place under blue skies. That means the teams should be able to apply their strategies without any added complications.
And there's going to be a lot for the teams to handle. So will the drivers and their cars be able to cope with the pressure? Let's find out right here at the Bahrain Grand Prix.
Following the difficulties in Q1, Pourchaire used an extra set of tires, meaning he's only got a single set of softs fresh left over for the race. Doohan has 2 sets of softs left over for the race, and so he's going to be able to go with a more aggressive strategy with a soft, medium, soft. Meanwhile, Pourchaire is going to have to use what he's got in terms of brand new tires and get the most out of them with a soft, hard, medium. A lot of the cars are going to go out there with a soft, medium, soft and not have any used sets left, especially those in the top 10, which means their tire wear is going to be worse than what I would expect to see for us with Doohan on the same strategy. And hopefully that's going to give us a pace advantage when those really fall off and start to lose some time out there. So in Pourchaire's strategy, we want to go light so that the car is a bit faster long term without necessarily pushing, though we can push on one of those stints for sure, either the hard or the medium, depending on kind of how we balance the tire wear along the way, but we can't really push much on the soft compound starting from 11th. Jack Doohan is going to be more aggressive with tires and have some natural pace, and we're going to go normal on... Actually, you know what? We're not going to go normal on fuel because those tires can't afford to push them. So we're going to do the same thing for him and go light by... make the car a little bit lighter and faster, and with the compounds combined with a little bit lighter fuel load, he'll just have some extra pace. He can't afford to push. Porsche can afford to push somewhere, somehow.
It looks like clear weather tonight for this race, with the drivers now just taking position on the grid. Looking now at the Williams. They'll be starting the race from the bottom half of the grid, so there's a fair bit of ground to make up. And looking at the second Williams car. Slower than most yesterday, so today they'll be starting from the bottom half of the grid. The teams are ready to go. Here we go with the Bahrain Grand Prix. And it's lights out and away we go.
And with a lengthy preseason now behind us, to have this episode resemble the length of an average episode for this series, I'm going to have to make sure that this race, like we did at the end of last season, we have to make sure that this race goes at a very, very high tempo. So immediately we're going to do that and go times 2 speed here, even on lap number 1, and then progressively throughout the race make sure that we are pushing much more than usual, even if it means it may cost me a position or two in the end, as we are with Porsche going up the inside of Ricardo, and that is a position for him. And let's go ahead and now settle in, because it's not this stint that we want to be pushing on. It is the next one, and Doohan really can't afford to either, and he's already gone around Ricardo, so he's going to settle in as well. And there you go, both with plenty of battery, both without going too far, both settling in before the end of the first lap. Is a good sign, and we're already up 1 spot to P10 and P11. Let's go ahead and check in on how everybody else is looking now. Signs of Verstappen lead, so it is Red Bull 1, 2, 80% though. You can see how we're on 93%. We're 10% ahead of all of those front runners, those guys who made Q3. All of them have used tires for this run. That means they're probably going to have used tires for their last run. Everybody's on the softs, and those behind us had 1 set left. But I would think a lot of cars are going to come out after that second pit stop on used softs. Everyone. Everyone who opts for that strategy. Now, how many of them go for it? We'll find out as the race progresses. DRS is now enabled. That's 2 laps in the books. And we've got that little bit of a pace advantage compared to Ocon at least. But that's a Mercedes that we've got to try to overtake. So this season, we're looking at, I'd say, 4 competitive cars that are going to give us a hard time. Red Bull, McLaren, Ferrari, and Mercedes. I think before long, we can overtake the Mercedes and won't have too many times during the season where we're going to have to go up against them. But Alfa Romeo appears to be 6th best, and the AlphaTauri's 7th best, with Haas and Aston Martin making up the back end of the grid. Right. Ocon seems to be slipping out of DRS range. The moment he does that, we're going to be able to get past him, and if it's a small gap, we're going to look to try to close that gap back up to Leclerc once we do manage to get around him. But for now, it's out to 1.4. Overtake on. Is that enough? Not quite. I think we're going to turn the engine up and give a little bit of push, especially with the extra tire wear that we do have, to try to make it on the front grid. Front stretch, that is. And we are going to push right on past 2.3 though. And look who followed us through. Doohan into 10th.
And a new position just gained by Williams.
10 seconds. Oh, sorry, 10 seconds. 2 seconds. 2 seconds back. 1.8. 1.6. We are closing them down. And we're inside a second, but it's after the detection zone. Will we be able to get back up there? We're within a second, it looks like. Doing staying close behind, just 4/10 down. And we've got DRS. We have got DRS. That'll close it back down, hopefully. Once we actually get the range down a little bit, we'll ease off. Now 7/10, 6/10. Okay, get the engine turned down. Can't stay on fuel like that for long. In fact, I'm a little surprised we have not recovered any fuel as of yet. Do it. 9/10 down. Drive a little bit harder. Get a little bit closer, please. We didn't even get fastest lap for that. A little disappointing. Alright, let's speed things up. So that's now P9 and P10. With Ocon and Ricciardo both behind us. And Pourchaire drops a second. He can't quite keep up, but who is he trying to keep up with? It's Sainz. It's not necessarily Leclerc who he's chasing, it's Sainz who he is chasing. So 1 lap difference between them strategy-wise. That's easy enough for us. And both drivers have recovered another 10th in 4 laps, it looks like. That would make us a little bit better off, but still require a little lift and coast at some point during this race. Right now we don't necessarily have the pace to do so. Oh, what did I say? Gap to leader. That's not that far. We're only 2.5 seconds ahead of those guys. So you gotta be careful with undercut. It's close enough behind that that ground could be covered pretty quickly. Cher again is gonna have to go aggressive for a little bit. He's 9/10 behind. And there's the first pit stops. 4 guys in, a lap earlier than what we were gonna do. Still not even the optimal lap. I mean, we've got 1 more to get around and do. But that means strategies are going to look different. What are these guys coming out on? Hard compound. Hard compound, so like Pourchaire. Wondering if I should pit this lap with Pourchaire. We've got Doohan in position just in case. .685 and we're held up. How do we get back out? So that was not somebody behind us passing us, that was somebody pulling into their pit box. Doohan runs around in second. He's now just 2 seconds behind Verstappen. He continues on. And Pourchaire's going to come out in P10 with Bottas ahead of us, Gasly ahead of us, Perez. And we are hold up on those guys.
Get back off.
Just over a second behind Bottas, so we should be able to get within DRS range here momentarily. Go ahead and deploy for now to help close that out.
Make sure you have something in it.
And there you go, 8/10 behind. So we've got our train. But Ricardo has gotten back just about back within train. He doesn't have it now. Alright. In DRS range. Pairing. Gasly has come out on the mediums. Norris has come out on the mediums. Joe, Stroll, Albon all on the mediums. So Ewan's not the only one going for it. He and Verstappen both entering pits, and we closed up on Verstappen quite a bit. We were 4.5 seconds down, and as we entered pit road, we're just 2 seconds down. So on Verstappen gained 2.5 seconds. He's definitely going to be down the grid order a little bit, but I'm guessing he's coming out on mediums, and he is. He's got the mediums on. I've already seen him there. And he's going for that more aggressive strategy, but short term it's going to cost him. How much does it cost Doohan? Where's Doohan's position? As a full extra. He's going to come out just behind his teammate. Not bad. Not bad. Keeps our position. Standard. Not bad. He's going to have some extra pace being on those mediums. But he did not get up to speed very fast, though. And he's 1.5 seconds down. Came out quarter of a car length behind his teammate, but did not get up to speed very quick.
If you've got any pace left, it would be good now.
Oh, multiple cars have crashed, including a Ferrari just ahead of Doohan. Somebody got into the back of the Ferrari. It is...
Okay, it's a safety car.
Perez got into the back of somebody else, it looks like.
Positive on the Delta.
Safety car.
Copy.
That doesn't look like a safety car scenario. By the way, it's a Red Bull. It's a Red Bull that Perez has hit. It's signs.
DRS is currently disabled. DRS is currently disabled. Okay, there's a big crash.
Wondering if we can go hards all the way to the end with Doohan. He's going to lose a lot of track position to do that, though. But he wouldn't have to pit. And then he's going to gain 30 seconds on everybody else. I don't think mediums will get to the end. All right. Let's think about this. Pit window is in 9 laps. And so we're not going to be there for a while. We're not going to be there for a while. He would not come out that far down. All right, Doohan into the pits. He's not the only one, but the other one is Perez, who had the incident. 2.692. And further down than I thought he would be. Further down than I thought he would be. I thought we would hang on to P8. Quite a bit further back than I thought we would be. I mean, comfortably behind those guys. They hadn't slowed up. They weren't driving like they were under a yellow. They were driving like they're green, but let's take care of our fuel.
Safety car in this lap, so just prepare for a restart.
So he's got some traffic, and he's got a stretch, which means we can't really push through this traffic, so let's hope that those front runners, we haven't compromised his race. But Pourchaire's in P6, doing okay. Towards us. And there's the first guys into the pits. Schumacher, Vettel, Tsunoda, all pitting.
We're not happy with fuel.
Pourchaire's fuel is getting worse. No. It was 0.7 and 0.8. Now it's both 0.7.
Vettel has just pitted.
Oh, doing with a lockup. It happened just as I clicked away from him. And he lost significant time. By the way, Doohan was terrible in practice. Absolutely terrible. He made all kinds of mistakes. But there goes his healthy advantage that he had created, developed for himself. We peel off with the McLaren. And another car just behind us. I believe that's Magnussen. We should have enough of an advantage that he's not going to be a threat to us.
Bottas is pitted.
And I doubt we're going to come out ahead of the McLaren. There's no way to get ahead and pit crew on this one except for the pit manager. We come out cleanly, and yes, we are still just behind Bottas. 2.805, but wow, Bottas comes out 3 wide, and then we come out behind at the off-road. He nearly takes our wing off. So it's Albon ahead of us. Albon ahead of Pourchaire there, and with space in between. Yeah, not a fan of that one. And 1.3 behind Albon. Really? He almost takes your wing off, and you're 1.3 behind him, even though we were coming out aggressive. I don't understand how that works sometimes. Okay, back to 0.08 or 0.8. It's close on whether we're going to get DRS here or not. We do get it. Okay. Standard. Now we can afford to push a little bit on the medium. Just locked up again with somebody else. That was a Haas. We just went around him. Just saw him off the track there.
Was that a lock-up on
Latifi.
the track?
Mother of all lockups. So, Doohan. P6. But of course made a mistake, so how much ground does he still have? That's Norris just behind us. That's how much ground we lost. We went from 11 seconds ahead of Norris to 1.7. And he's not going to win this race, especially at 66%. It's still needing to recover a bit of fuel in 14 laps. Cover about 0.2 per lap though, so we don't need to lift much. But we want to stay out in front of those guys. We're going to give them DRS. That's Perez behind Russell, and then Ocon. Those three have not pit yet. We're up to P4. That's Verstappen behind Norris. So that's the front couple of guys. Can we hang on for a third? Doesn't seem like it. Meanwhile, Pourchaire's in P13. There are plenty of guys that have yet to pit. And some really, really used softs for some of these guys are going to be well off pace in the final laps, including Norris. Norris has already gone around doing it.
And And McLaren with a great overtake.
We try to stay in DRS range here as long as we can. Now at 0.6 for both guys. I'd say with 14 laps we can cover about 0.3, so you know we barely make it do the lifting coast.
That's a good overtake from Alpine.
Gasly overtakes Doohan. He's down to P4. He already caught up that 4.5 seconds. And Porsche gets around.
And there's an overtake from Williams.
Definitely not a serious enough pace advantage at this point to bother trying to drive away from him. I think eventually we will. Doohan may have a small chance to get back around Perez before the end to get back to P5. He's not behind him yet, but it's only a 1/10 of a second ahead now, so he's right on the back of him. And the Aston Martin just went off. That's Vettel. Vettel with mistake. Drops to 12th out of the points. It's a lockup. Behind us is Leclerc back up into the points. Do need to watch out for him a little bit. Maybe it's time to try to get away from these guys. We're going to have DRS again on this next one, and maybe we want to kind of turn it straight into... Yeah, because here comes the Ferrari. And he gets around. Damn it, Albon. Or, Albon. Porsche. Porsche. We're going to have to save a move for the last lap. Doohan! Oh my goodness. Another big mistake from Doohan. And now he's lost a lot of ground. He's still ahead of this group though. Remember there's 15 seconds. Okay, well, now you're in cruise mode for
Lift and coast level 3.
Copy. Make sure
go
you
ahead and
lose some
deploy.
energy.
Empty that battery. Back to Porsche and P8.
Full deploy.
Copy.
So you got to say that Doohan has been disappointing on his debut. Porsche, strategy-wise, especially when he came out of the pits, ended up in a bad spot. And then, through no fault of his own, with an accident in front of him, had nothing to do.
That's a good job.
I didn't realize I was still on deploy with Porsche, but there you go. Aggressive.
Pushing
Lap
on,
57
pushing on.
has started.
And there's an overtake
final lap.
from Williams.
How about defend? Doing still in no man's land, so he's fine. He's at 35%. P6 should be his finishing position. That's doing
Okay,
way up
starting
there.
the final lap.
Neutral. Not a fan of the DRS zone still to come. We can go aggressive through there. We can turn the engine up through there. Another zone. I don't like that there's 3 of them here. Not in this scenario anyway. one more zone to get through. Because the final one on the straight, you're not going to get the overtake done before the start-finish line. Alright, Porsche. There you go. Last big turn, last big opportunity for a lockup, and he's going to get through it cleanly. And aggressively try to hold off Leclerc, which we have finally gotten Albon out of DRS range. Battery's empty. Neutral the rest of the way. Down 0.0, but we did hold him off. In fact, we are pulling away nearly a second right now from Leclerc. Verstappen has taken the win ahead of Norris. Gasly is going to take P3. Perez gets all the way back up to P4 and Guan Yu Zhou P5. Here comes Doohan in P6. Strategy, we tried something, we rolled the dice, it almost worked, not quite, but Porsche is going to hang on for P7 ahead of Leclerc. That's good, and the other guy's off in the distance. Not a bad start, P6, P7 for this one, for a car that didn't quite have the pace. We rolled the dice with a strategy that didn't malfunction, it didn't go poorly, but it didn't quite work out, and then made a mistake that otherwise would have been competitive for potentially for P4, P5 right at the end. Maybe, I don't think those tires would have had enough in them to make that push at the end. Not quite. That was his thing. Maybe the game for Doohan was not quite, plus mistake. Case of Porsche, the mistake happened in front of him, and it cost him a lot of time. He finished the best out of that group. Couldn't hang on to the fastest lap either, so that's going to end up being 5 points to start the season, because there is a new points system, folks. Don't forget, new points system. 10 for the win. 8, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. There is no fastest lap anymore, so it doesn't matter. That's right. They've nixed the fastest lap. So, 5 points. Certainly not a bad start. But we are already 5 points behind Red Bull. We're already going to be 3 points behind McLaren. That's going to do it for this episode, though. I'm Decathlon Gamer. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Have a good one. Be safe out there. And bye for now.